I still remember the smell of my mom's lavender perfume. She'd spray it on her wrists every morning. Soft, gentle, calming. After she passed, that scent disappeared from our home like everything else, warm and familiar. Dad was a wreck for months. So was I, but I learned early on that grief makes people uncomfortable. I stopped crying out loud and started folding laundry instead. Then came Meredith. He met her at some charity dinner. She was polished, loud, always smiling a little too hard. And within 6 months, she and her 2 kids moved into our house. Riley and Chloe. Blonde, popular, glued to their phones, and never once looked me in the eye unless they needed something. Dad called it blending families. Said we just needed time. Just give it time, Lena. They'll come around. But I knew. From day one, I knew they saw me as something less. Meredith rearranged the living room, threw out Mom's favorite chair without asking. Riley called my room the attic, even though it was just the smallest spare room down the hall. Chloe once asked if I was the housekeeper's daughter. Dad didn't see it. Or maybe he did, and just chose to look the other way. He started working longer, hours, leaving me to figure out the dinners, the dishes, the messes they made. I kept quiet. I didn't want to be difficult. I told myself it was temporary. That one day, they'd see me. That maybe Meredith would soften. That Riley and Chloe would include me. That my dad would stand up for me. But hope gets heavy when you carry it alone. And mine was starting to collapse. Every day felt like I was shrinking more and more in my own home. I wasn't just invisible. I was invisible with chores. I cooked dinner almost every night, cleaning up after Riley and Chloe's messes, without a word of thanks. The house felt colder somehow, like the walls absorbed all the laughter except mine. Dad barely noticed. When I finally worked up the courage to tell him how hard it was, how it felt like I was just their unpaid maid, he smiled weakly and said, "They don't mean it, Lena. They'll warm up." But they never did. One afternoon, I was unloading groceries when Riley strutted past with a smirk. "Hey, Lena, could you grab me a soda? Oh, and don't forget the chips," she said like I was invisible air. I nodded. No use arguing. Chloe, her little sidekick, giggled. "You really know your place, don't you?" I forced a smile, but inside my chest tightened. It wasn't just words. It was everything. The way they ignored me, left me out of conversations, treated me like I was less than family. I kept thinking about Mom. If she were here, she'd never let this happen. She'd fight for me. But Dad? He was stuck somewhere between trying to keep the peace and pretending everything was fine. At night, I'd lie awake wondering if I'd ever be seen. Not as the girl who cleans and cooks, but as his daughter. Because, right now, I was just a ghost in my own home. It hit me like a punch to the gut the day Riley announced her engagement. The whole house buzzed with excitement, the kind I wasn't invited to share. Invitations went out, plans were made, dresses picked. Everyone talked about bridesmaids and bachelorette parties, but not once did my name come up. I swallowed the knot in my throat and asked Dad, "Am I in the bridal party?" He looked down, avoided my eyes, and said, "They've got plenty already, Lena. You understand, right?" I nodded, even though my heart shattered. Then Meredith pulled me aside, her smile sharp as a knife. "You can still help," she said. "We could use someone to serve drinks at the reception. You'll make yourself useful." I wanted to scream, to tell her that I wasn't their maid or waitress. But I didn't. I said nothing, and I began practicing. My fake smile. The days leading to the wedding, I was a ghost, cleaning, running errands, making sure everything was perfect for people who didn't even see me. I wasn't a sister or daughter to them anymore. Just a shadow behind the scenes. I tried to hold on to hope. Maybe this would be the moment they'd finally see me, But deep down, I knew better. The wedding day felt like walking through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. While everyone wore silk and smiles, I was handed a waitress uniform, a stark reminder of the role they'd cast me in. I moved through the crowd, refilling glasses, clearing plates, invisible and unheard. Then Chloe's voice cut through the noise, loud and cruel. "Be sure to refill the champagne, Lena. It's the only thing you're good at." The guests laughed. Some glanced my way, others pretended not to hear. My cheeks burned, but I kept my smile. I swallowed the sting, swallowing everything. Pride, anger, sadness, because words wouldn't help. Silence was my shield. I thought about Dad, about Meredith and her kids, about the woman who used to be my mom, who would have never let this happen. No one stood up for me. But inside, something shifted. I wasn't going to let their cruelty break me. Not yet. I told myself this was just one chapter, that someday the story would change. Just a week after the wedding, Dad was gone. His battle with illness had been quiet, mostly hidden behind tired smiles and private doctor visits. But when he passed, the house felt emptier than ever, colder, too. Meredith and her daughters cried loud in public. Their grief seemed rehearsed, like a performance. I cried in silence, alone in my room. When the funeral was over, we waited for the inevitable, the division of Dad's estate. Everyone whispered about who would get what, but the unspoken truth was clear. No one expected me to inherit a thing. I tried to prepare myself. Maybe they'd give me a small piece, a token, something to show I mattered. But deep down, I knew better. I'd been the outsider for years, the maid, the invisible daughter. The phone call came from Mr. Holden, Dad's lawyer. He asked us all to meet. The tension in the room was thick. Meredith whispered, "It'll all go to Riley and Chloe. Don't worry." But I didn't worry. I was ready, because sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest truths. The room was heavy with expectation. Everyone waiting to hear who would inherit Dad's legacy. Meredith sat tall, confident, flanked by Riley and Chloe, their eyes already sparkling with dreams of control and power. Mr. Holden cleared his throat and unfolded the document. The silence was deafening. As per the last signed and notarized will, Lena Carter is the sole heir of Mr. Jonathan Carter's estate, including the house, all savings, and his business shares. A pin dropped. Faces went pale. Meredith's eyes welled up, but it wasn't just sadness. It was shock, disbelief, fear. Riley's mouth opened, but no words came out. Chloe looked like she wanted to vanish. I sat there, heart pounding, watching as the family I once thought I knew crumbled in front of me. For years, they treated me like a ghost, a maid, someone less than. But now, everything had changed. They looked at me differently, not as invisible, but as the rightful owner of everything they tried to take. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply let the silence speak for me. Meredith's voice trembled as she reached for my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Lena, sweetheart, we didn't mean any of it. Your family, please. Let's forget the past." I pulled my hand away. Every insult, every slammed door, every moment they acted like I was less than. I remembered it all, crystal clear. I stood up, looked each of them straight in the eye. "You all treated me like a maid, like I was invisible. But now I own this house, and I'm not asking you to leave. I'm telling you. Get out." The room went silent again. Meredith's smile faded, replaced by a tight, bitter expression. Riley's jaw clenched. Chloe's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. I wasn't the girl who cleaned their messes anymore. I was the woman who held all the cards. I wasn't angry, not loud or screaming, but quiet, steady, strong. I was done being the shadow in my own life. And finally, they saw me. After that day, things changed, but not in the way they expected. Meredith and her kids tried to act normal, but the tension was thick enough to cut. With a knife, they'd glance at me with forced smiles, pretending everything was fine. But behind closed doors, whispers, complaints, blame. I kept my distance, focusing on the house, the business, the estate Dad trusted me with. I learned quickly. Papers, meetings, phone calls. Things I never thought I'd have to handle. And I surprised myself. The power wasn't in yelling or fighting. It was in calm control. One by one, they realized the game had changed. No more orders, no more sneers. They had ruled the house once. Now it was mine. And I wasn't going anywhere. After the will was read and I took control, I thought maybe they'd accept it, gracefully step aside and let me be. But I was wrong. Meredith started calling me more, her voice softer but filled with something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Regret? Or just trying to manipulate? Lena, please. We can still be family. Don't let this tear us apart. I listened, but I didn't answer right away. How do you explain years of being ignored, treated like a servant, while they lived like I was invisible? How do you forgive when they never once saw you as equal? Riley tried sweetening the deal, promising to make it easier if I just let things go. Chloe sent texts full of fake kindness, asking to catch up. But I wasn't interested. Not anymore. I stood, firm because standing up isn't just about shouting or fighting. Sometimes it's about quiet strength, holding your ground when everyone expects you to back down. I told them, I'm not your servant. I'm not here to fix old wounds or pretend nothing happened. This house isn't yours anymore. It's mine. And I'm not giving it back. It was hard. There were moments when doubt crept in, whispering maybe I was being too harsh. But then I remembered every insult, every slammed door, every lonely night feeling like I was nothing. This was my life, my home, my chance to finally be seen, and I would not let anyone take that away. They had power once. Now, the power was mine, and I wasn't going anywhere. The house feels different now, not just because it's mine, but because it finally feels like home. Meredith and her daughters left quietly. No screaming matches, no bitter fights, just a slow, silent retreat when they realized this was my space now. It wasn't easy. There were days filled with memories, of being ignored, of standing in the kitchen while they laughed in the living room, of pretending their words didn't hurt. But I'm done pretending. I don't hate them. I don't have space for that bitterness anymore. What I have is peace. Dad's legacy wasn't just about money or property. It was about resilience, about holding on when no one believed in you, about rising even when they tried to push you down. Now, I get to live that legacy. I'm not the girl who cleaned and cooked anymore. I'm Lena Carter, the woman who owns her story and her future. I've started making changes, little by little. Painting walls, fixing broken things, planting flowers in the garden, all symbols of new beginnings. Sometimes when I walk through these halls, I still hear their voices, the harsh words, the dismissals. But those voices don't define me anymore. This is my home, my rules. And finally, I'm free. I know this story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever felt invisible, unheard, or less than. You are more than what they say. You are stronger than their cruelty. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one decision, to reclaim your life. This is mine, and I'm here to stay.